It was supposed to be just another weekend of paintballing, sunlight filtering through the trees, the sound of boots crunching on the dirt, and the thrill of adrenaline pumping through the veins as players took aim. But something felt off about the abandoned forest where they had chosen to play. The woods were quiet, too quiet. Caleb had noticed it the moment they arrived, a sense of heaviness in the air, as if something unseen was watching them, waiting. The other players dismissed his unease, laughing it off as nerves. After all, they'd been in this area before, but the chill running down Caleb's spine wouldn't go away. The dense canopy above blocked out most of the daylight, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch unnaturally, even in the midday sun. There was a strange stillness that lingered between the trees. They gathered at the starting point, gear on, ready to go. Caleb adjusted his mask, but his eyes kept darting around, searching the shifting shadows. Something about the forest felt ancient, like it had been there long before any of them, and would remain long after they were gone. The air smelled faintly of damp earth and something else, something rotten. "Ready, Caleb?" one of his friends called, a grin on his face. Yeah, just waiting for the signal," Caleb muttered, trying to shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The game began. The team sprinted into the woods, rifles raised, paintballs whizzing through the air. But it wasn't the usual rush of excitement that Caleb felt. It was the creeping sensation that every sound, the crack of a twig, the rustling of leaves, was amplified, as if the forest itself was listening. He wasn't sure if it was the adrenaline, or if there was something more. As they advanced deeper into the woods, Caleb's gaze flicked back to a shadow he swore he saw moving in the corner of his eye. He paused, his heart hammering in his chest. No one else seemed to notice, but the trees, they weren't right. Some of them seemed to twist unnaturally, their trunks gnarled and thick with age. And then the whispering started, barely audible at first, like the wind rustling through the leaves. But it wasn't the wind. It was something else. "Did you hear that?" Caleb's voice shook as he turned to his team. But they were too far ahead, too wrapped up in the game to pay him any mind. Caleb continued forward, but every step felt heavier. The air grew colder, and the sun seemed to grow dimmer. Something shifted between the trees, a shadow darting too quickly for him to catch. The hairs on his neck stood up. Was it a person, or something else? The sounds grew louder, scratching noises, like claws dragging across bark. And then, a soft laugh. Not the kind of laugh that came from his friends. This was colder, hollow. He spun around, rifle raised, but no one was behind him. The forest had swallowed them whole. Panic clawed at his throat. "Guys," his voice barely came out. The shadows in the trees seemed to move, stretching unnaturally long. He wasn't alone. Then it appeared. A figure, tall and impossibly thin, standing motionless between the trees. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, and its eyes, wide and empty, stared back at him. The creature didn't move, but Caleb could feel its gaze burning through him, cold and calculating. Suddenly, the branches above cracked, as though something immense was shifting in the canopy. The figure never moved, but Caleb could hear it, its breathing, slow, rhythmic, like something waiting, watching. "Caleb," his teammate shouted from a distance, breaking the tension. The moment he turned to look away, the figure vanished. Just like that. Gone. As if it had never been there at all. Caleb's hands trembled as he lowered his rifle, breath coming in shallow gasps. His team regrouped and continued the game, but the woods felt different now, more oppressive. The shadows seemed to stretch further, the whispering louder. He knew he wasn't imagining it. When the game finally ended, light filtered through the trees, but for a split second, Caleb swore he saw something move, a shape twisting within the shadows. It was watching him, and just as quickly, the world fell silent again. The others never saw what Caleb had seen, but as they packed up and left the forest, none of them spoke much.